Hi everyone, my name's Dominic O'Brien. I'm a lecturer in anatomy at Brighton and Sussex Medical School. Very sorry I can't be there with you today, unfortunately. After 2.5 years, COVID finally got me, but I shan't let it stand in the way of me having a good old rant. So today what I want to talk to you about is the idea of assessing attendance in medical education. So I'm going to start off talking about why we assess attendance, why it's mandatory, how it can be assessed, as it can vary from institution to institution, and then spend a bit of time focusing on whether it should be. I'm going to talk about some of the benefits and the drawbacks of assessing or enforcing attendance, and then finally come to some conclusions and give some recommendations. But just for being as open as I can be, I firmly stand on the side that I think assessed attendance is rather silly, so that may come across in my arguments, so do just take that with a pinch of salt as I go through. So firstly, why we assess attendance basically comes down to the fact that the General Medical Council says that we should. The General Medical Council, just if you're not aware, are basically the governing body that will decide what medical students are taught, how they're taught it, and what kind of needs to be within the curriculum for a medical student. And so medical schools need to adhere to their guidance and their recommendations and what they say is needed to prove that you have an effective medical graduate. And in their eyes, they say that attendance or evidence of engagement is necessary, and they're equating this evidence of engagement with attendance. Is that correct? I personally don't think so. I do not think that attendance equals engagement, and we're going to talk a little bit about why later on. How it's assessed, basically the medical school will decide which sessions are mandatory or will be assessed. This doesn't have to be every session. This can be certain sessions, whether it just be lab sessions or just tutorials, or every single session put on by the medical school. How they actually record it will vary as well. Some universities will scan student cards, there'll be little kind of beepers at the entrances to rooms and the like. Slightly more high-techy versions now are things called geofencing, where a very rough location is recorded by students checking in, as you would on any other kind of social media platform, which then records the student's vague location as to not get into too kind of Big Brother-y 1984 kind of vibes. Just basically saying that the student, when they checked in, were in fact in the location they said they were, attending theoretically whatever session was going on. Or there's the good old-fashioned paper register, the students just signing in to say that they were in attendance. And 80% of attendance level is said to be a pass. That's basically you need to be at 80% of the sessions to pass that portion of the medical curriculum. Anything below that can be mitigated for to avoid failing that component, but we're going to talk about why mitigation isn't always as great as it sounds. So some of the benefits, having high attendance is shown to improve professionalism and teamwork. This is basically because you just get more opportunity to interact with your colleagues, with your peers, with your instructors, and just kind of develop that more professional persona. You're immersing yourself in a more professional environment, especially if you're becoming clinically trained and you're on placements. You will actually be within the industry, for lack of a better term, that you're going to work within, working with other professionals, learning how to be a professional, and working with others regularly, even if it's just working on a group project at university, or actually on a placement, or even just group revision. That's still building teamwork and interpersonal skills, which are really important. And enabling personal growth by doing that, by having these interpersonal interactions. Basically, you find out more about who you are as a person. And I've got an example over here of the Johari window model. Basically, what this kind of encompasses is that there's different portions of an individual's personality. So that there are things that they know about themselves and that others know about them. This is very open, everybody's aware of it. There are things that people know but don't show others, so these are the things that people keep hidden. But this is the main area of focus when it comes to interpersonal interactions. Things that others know about you that you don't know about yourself. Things that you might have issues or preconceptions, prejudices, things like that you don't really notice, but other people will be able to point out in you, kind of challenge you on them and allow you to grow more as a person. And it's very difficult to do that if you aren't immersing yourself by attending your university course and things such as that. Other benefits are you get access to the hidden curriculum, a very nebulous term, but we all know it's there. Just learning how to interact with different people, learning who to ask for what kind of help, where to go for different resources and things like that are things that, unless you are engaging as much as you possibly can and actually present at a lot of the educational offerings from the university, there are things you will miss. It's just inherently going to happen. It's not ideal, but it's just a very kind of sad fact about teaching in general. And as well, if all students are attending, it's very easy then to see any students that are struggling, whether it's personally, academically. If students are there and you get to interact with them as an instructor, as a tutor, such as myself, I can see if students are struggling and I can try and help them. But it's not a perfect system by any stretch. Making attendance assessed and making it mandatory is very inaccessible. Basically, it completely disregards anything else that the students might have going on in their lives aside from their university course. And as we look on the right here, we can see this is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just if you haven't seen it before, this kind of bottom half is the deficiency needs. So these are the things that an individual needs. Baseline needs. They need to feel safe within themselves, feel like they belong and are loved, feel safe, and their physiological needs are met. Food, hunger, warmth, things like that. Food and hunger are the same thing. Cognitive needs then are part of this growth, and these kind of needs aren't actually met unless we satisfy these deficiency needs. So cognitive needs, such as learning, can't actually be achieved and grown unless these needs are met. And if we're asking students to turn up when these needs aren't met, it's kind of pointless. They're not actually going to be able to learn because they're not in a safe, kind of conducive place to actually, achieving those cognitive needs and growing. It's also adding a massive amount of unnecessary stress. As I said, mitigation can be very difficult. It can warrant getting medical notes, even paying for medical notes. If there's grievances, this can often kind of warrant showing death certificates, which is incredibly stressful emotionally, is quite a burden to put on someone if they're going through a grievance. And it's not kind of the fix that it should be. It's not the easy, I was ill, okay, we won't fail you. There's often a lot more to it than that, which can just kind of make the situation worse, which forces students to go in and attend and get that attendance mark even when they're not physically or emotionally at their best and able to engage. It also removes student autonomy. You're basically taking that choice away from them as to whether to attend or not. Is it going to be beneficial for them? It doesn't matter, because we're telling them they have to turn up, otherwise they'll fail. And basically that goes towards developing a culture of presenteeism. Just if you haven't heard of that term before, presenteeism is basically the idea of being physically there but not mentally there. You're there in body, your mind could be anywhere else. Just not engaging cognitively, you're just there as the body to get that attendance mark. And this is potentially quite damaging if we instill this kind of a culture within them where turning up and just being there is fine. As they move forward into professional careers, that could be quite damaging to wherever they end up, to their industry they end up in, to the patients that they end up seeing, if they're not actually fully invested or able to be fully present within their capacity, whatever job they're doing at that time. Corporate sides, very interested in presenteeism. It's thought to cost the American economy about $150 billion a year. It's this whole culture of not being able to look after yourself. It's just kind of being there and being present rather than, mentally actually engaged in the act. And it also doesn't benefit academic performance. Enforcing the attendance doesn't actually help. Because if we link it back, they're not mentally there. They're elsewhere doing other things. They're not engaging. They're not getting the benefit from it. But if we explain why turning up helps, why attending as much as you possibly can and engaging helps, that has been seen to improve attendance and improve performance academically. So again, that kind of helps to give back the students their autonomy of telling them why they should be turning up, what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, or at least helping them find a way that works for them, and that will actually get those benefits that we're hoping enforcing attendance will. So just to round off, attendance should absolutely be monitored. I really think it should, but not assessed. If we monitor it, then we're finding out how students are doing, if they're able to attend. If they're not, then we can check in with them, find out if there's other things going on, if they need help, if there's something wrong, if they just don't like the sessions, then we can look at how we can improve the sessions to make them more palatable or more useful for students. But assessing it doesn't actually help. Basically, I think that we need to move to giving medical students kind of the autonomy and compassion that you would expect to just give anyone. Let them choose if they want to turn up. If they don't find a session useful and they can get the same amount of learning from it at home, in the library, talking with their friends over the content, then let them do that. As long as they can pass the exams at the end of the year, that should be the aim. We're here as educators to facilitate their learning at this level, and I think enforcing them to sit in a room on a wet Thursday morning when they could have maybe worked from home a little bit, been a bit more comfortable and gotten more out of it, might actually be better. I think we should explain the benefits of the attendance because that's the only real thing that's been shown to actually improve academic performance. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much to the committee for not only organising the whole event but for giving me the time and thinking this talk was actually interesting enough to put on the programme. If you have any questions, points, feedback, anything at all, please do get in touch. Feel free to drop me an email, at me on Twitter. Never had a Twitter beef, so if you disagree with me, get at me. And if there's anything, feedback, comments, or anything you want to provide anonymously, just because if you don't feel super comfortable putting a name to it, which is totally fine, you can follow the link or use the QR code to go to this feedback form, and that's all totally anonymous. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you're all having a fantastic time at the conference, and I hope to see you all next year. Thank you very much.